Julian Ichim is a 33-year-old former University of Waterloo student. In over a decade of being a community activist and organizer, he has brought change to the communities he has worked with. He has assisted in creating youth harm reduction programs, coordinated addiction programs, and anti-poverty initiatives, and the list just goes on. But his strong political and social conscience has come at a high price. For a year and a half prior to the G20 summit in Toronto, undercover police infiltrated protest groups planning G20 demonstrations. In Kitchener-Waterloo and Guelph, 2 undercover officers started hanging out with activists. Anti-poverty activist Julian Ichim became close friends with one of the undercover officers until he was arrested on June 26, 2010, just hours before the G20 summit even began. He was charged with conspiracy to commit mischief. Julian never received the police synopsis, nor was he told where or when he allegedly counseled or conspired to commit indictable offenses. Although the charges were later dropped, Julian was never able to publicly speak about his brutal arrest on June 26, being persecuted for his Marxist political ideology, nor about how he felt after having been betrayed by the officer who he considered to be a friend, and the most difficult part of it all, having lost his mother to cancer during this process. So he decided to start his blog in November 2011 in an attempt to set out his side of the story, not just about the G20, but about everything in general. 1 month later, he was criminalized just for trying to tell his side of the story. The Ontario Provincial Police asked Ichim to remove one of his posts where he referred to the undercover police officer. But standing by his strong principles and his belief of freedom of speech, he refused to remove his post and was therefore charged by the police with 3 counts of disobeying a court order.
Currently, I am facing 3 counts of disobey court order by indictment here in the Superior Court as a result of writing about my experience with the undercover investigation during the G20 and the dirty tricks that were pulled out during the G20. 2 years before the G20, based on psychological profiles, the police created an undercover operation where people who held quote-unquote criminal ideologies were targeted for infiltration. I was one of the people who was targeted for infiltration, and on the morning of the G20, I was beaten and arrested for conspiracy. The charges were later dropped. These current charges that I face come from me talking about my arrest and the other undercover operation targeting political people, particularly my experience with this undercover operation. I am defending myself on a political basis. The reality of the situation is these charges are political. The original conspiracy charges are based on the targeting of people based on political ideology. These current charges are stemming from me talking about the political attacks on political people. Therefore, these charges are political. The only way to defend yourself is on a political basis, and I'm defending myself on the basis that the court and the system is being used as a tool to criminalize political people. And I aim to show how from the beginning, the undercover operation until today, the courts have been used and the system has been used to target people based on holding ideologies that the state does not deem legitimate. I do not think the Canadian justice system is fair, because the reality of the situation is I am being targeted because I am a political person. My writings were being watched because I am a political person. The undercover operation was based on my politics. Meanwhile, and I am facing jail time because of my politics and because of my writing. Meanwhile, the real criminals who mask themselves as politicians steal millions of dollars from the taxpayers, criminalize dissent, create a police state, steal elections, yet are given more and more money and influence and are not being persecuted or prosecuted, while I, for simply being political, am being persecuted and prosecuted. So obviously the system is not fair. It serves the interests of the rich. who are free to steal without and act with impunity, while those of us who speak out are criminalized and charged.